what we are saying with the unity schools, what is going wrong, or what has gone wrong with the unity schools, so that there is a divergence now from the original objectives of why those schools were established?
Yeah, thank you so much, Kinsley. Let me pick up from my principal. Gawan went to Sokoto and realized that the objective was achieved. And by the way, he instituted the National Youth Service Corps, right?
That's right, 73.
In 1974-73, a policy came up with two main objectives: unity, continuation from secondary school into the production of qualified teenagers to feed into our universities, and then at the same time provide the needed manpower into our production, into the economy of Nigeria. Then the second point is the unity. Now, he started that objective that was dissolved in 1982-83 with the introduction of the 6334 system. Now, that's a policy. And it was realized that there was the 6334 system introduced a process whereby you are supposed to learn, in addition to English, 3 other major languages, depending on where you're coming from, either Igbo, Yoruba, or Hausa, as part of your academic training, in such a way that the process of integration can be faster. Between that period and now, there had been some policy somersaults, and the society is overwhelmed with the urbanization, the growth of our urban centers. You could agree with me, sir, that over the past 10 years, the population growth, those moving to urban areas, had doubled. Infrastructure had been so low, teachers are not being paid well, and it's just chaos. Students, pupils are learning under trees. You just wonder what is happening. The infrastructure and the provision of learning aids have not been able to match the number of age-going students or pupils into our schools. And that is a very fundamental point which we have not been able to address. Successive governments have not been able to address. And apart from that, I seriously believe there should be some teacher training opportunities for increasing knowledge, best practices, so that our teachers, apart from being paid well and promptly too, they should be trained to be able to impact knowledge. You can't give what you don't have. And teachers are not being trained. We have to be very sincere and address the issue head on.
Well, I don't know. Fadeke, I mean, you indicated a while ago that Mrs. Fadeke Ayo Ojajuna, you indicated a while ago that you've taught English, outside the country. As an alumna of a unity school, I mean, there's a presumption that you are in touch with your old school, along with some of your other colleagues.
Yes, I'm
what do you find wrong with your school and indeed other unity schools in the country today?
It's a pity our school is now extinct. It was closed in 1982. And I think they should revisit that. We have this problem now where students finish from school at 16, not matured, and are thrown into the university. And look at the chaos we have even at universities now. During our time, it was like a stopgap. You went to do A-levels. You are a bit more matured to go to university. I remember even the DJ, Yakubu Ibn Mohammed, who is like a senior brother to me. When he finished school, he was not allowed to go to university. His principal told him he needed to go and do HSC. And that was why he went to St. Louis to do his HSC. So he was better prepared to go to university. What do we have now? You have 16-year-olds. They get there, at any small challenge. That's why you have cultism. You have all sorts. Because they are not matured enough for that institution, unfortunately. And I also have something to say about teachers. I am a bit disappointed that when you look at the typical JAMB form, You have first choice, you have university. Second choice, you have polytechnic. And then third choice, you have college of education. Why should teaching job be a third choice? You understand what I mean? Why is it for failures? Why should that be? Teaching is a calling. You have to love your job. It should be at par. First choice, you want to be a teacher. Not because you don't have anything doing, you end up being a teacher. Just because you want to while away time. And that's one of the reasons why we have everybody in education and no real teachers. It's a bit disheartening. Third choice.
Well, if you talk about teachers in this country, you recall that the
Third choice.
teachers went down sometime in the early 80s. When it was becoming an abnormal thing to say you are a teacher.
Yes,
so
because
it came
you
down
paid, landlord
in
won't
terms
give
of
you
the salaries. State governors were owing salaries, teacher salaries. They could pay other ministries, but would not pay teachers and all of that. So
even
many
in your
Nigerians.
Kogi now, 39 months I read, not
so,
paid.
So many Nigerians were disenchanted when it comes to teaching. If you mention it, somebody say, I'm not going to be a teacher because my own teacher is not well to do in the first place. So why am I now trying for him to be my mentor and all that? But all that culminated into what has happened to our unity schools in terms of teaching. We have talked about curriculum here. And again, the infrastructure that is no longer there.
Yes.
If a unity school, which should be a special school, owned by federal government, should be adequately funded in such a way that people will compete, to go to unity school. I recall those days, in my time, if you go to government college, you are like one, strong brain like that. Federal government college.
Yes.
Or King's College, for instance.
Or King's College, and all that,
wiped out.
what's out, and we are back to square one, so to speak. No, I'm still coming back to you because you have experience, having been a teacher outside the country, in Russia to be precise, as you told us. Is there anything you think could be drawn from the Russian experience that could be brought down here? And see how young schools can be, brought back to its form, and of course, they'll be able to achieve its objectives.
Of course, it's a level of standard of teachers. They must, as I said, they must love the children. They must love the job. It's first and foremost. Because apart from parents, the next is the teacher. Students should be free to come to you, and that is out of respect, to tell you their problems. And you have this system in Russia. If a child is not, they don't repeat in primary schools. They don't repeat. Because of the psychological damage it's going to do to the child. So what happens is, if a child is not doing well, then the teacher doesn't have a right to go on holiday. You have to sit with that child and bring up the child to normal. And if a child is sick for a very long time, the teacher has to go home also. There are special teachers that will go home to coach the child so that they come up to the level of their class. But here, you just discover nobody cares. If you are sick, you're just on your own. If you are in hospital, there are teachers who go to hospitals to go and coach these children. They must not be lagging behind. The psychological damage done here, that's why you have a lot of dropouts. Not because they want to. You imagine a child goes to primary 1, makes friends, they are all together, and then some people advance forward. In fact, we had a case in just of recent. The boy had a girlfriend, and the girl passed, and he didn't. He took snipe. He said, how can his girlfriend extend to the next class? And he was asked to repeat. We have to think of the psychological damage, which we don't have here. In every school, there must be a psychologist. As we have in Moscow, in Russia, there must be a psychologist.
I think they call those ones guardians and counselors now.
Counseling,
Right? I think I don't know whether
I don't know
they are
if we
supposed to
them.
have, but
Yes, they are
whether
supposed to
indeed
have.
yeah, but
You
whether
know?
they actually exist is a different issue. Chief Onoja, back to you. King's College old students, have on their own tried to ensure that the glory of the school doesn't fade. There was a time, nobody went to King's College. King's College was no longer a school of choice. I'm sure you recall that. But then the old students have tried their best. What exactly has worked in terms of seeking to rediscover the old glory of King's College that other unity schools might benefit from?
Well, thank you very much indeed. King's College, of course, was the first. And we pride ourselves in saying the first, the best, and the icon. King's College fulfills the promise to this country. When King's College started, teachers were given the right place in society. The first principal of King's College was Mr. Lomax. And Mr. Lomax shared on the marina, there were 4 houses. One for the Governor General of the Southern Protectorate, one for the Anglican Bishop of the Diocese of the Niger, one for the Managing Director of the Nigerian Railway, because the railway had started and had gone beyond the Ibadan, and one was for the Principal of King's College. In the absence of the Governor General, the Managing Director of the Nigerian Railways became the acting Governor General of the Southern Protectorate. In the absence of both of them, the Principal of King's College was the Governor General of the Southern Protectorate. The teacher was recognized. He was a member of a community. He was given the right of place. And unfortunately, King's College in 100 years produced only 4 teachers. In 100 years, only 4 students who left King's College became teachers. That tells you the way society recognizes and teachers. But it's wonderful. And King's College, because of the unity and because of the quality of education that they provided, created the 4th tribe in Nigeria. We talk about the Yoruba, the Hausa, the Igbo. Then King's College created the 4th tribe. And that 4th tribe came into power in 2012. In 2012, Lamido Sanusi was governor of the central bank. In 2012, Samsudeen Usman was the minister for national planning. And in 2012, Monsoor Mukhtar was the minister of finance. All of them went to King's College. All of them are Muslims. And all of them from Kano. But nobody remembered that. They were top performers. They did their job excellently well. Everybody was satisfied because of the quality of education they got and the exposure. Nobody remembered they were all Muslims. Nobody remembered they were all from Kano. You see what the power of the 4th tribe, the 4th tribe, the tribe of the educated. When we have people who are educated, then we forget about ethnicity and religion. And that is the mission of the unity colleges. They were supposed to make us forget ethnicity and religion. Unfortunately, over the years, the schools, King's College was established. Queen's College was established. Federal Government College Sokoto was established. Federal Government College Warri was established. But after the 12th that Yakubu Gowon established in 1973, others were cited for political reasons. And there's a difference between establishing a school and citing a school. When you establish a school, it's like planting a flower. You water it, you make sure you nurture it, you make sure it turns out well. So the schools that were cited, the teachers were posted there, and the structures were haphazardly done, and nobody looked back. And so they are neglected. Like I told you, there's no planning. Education has never been our priority. And until education is our priority, we can never make progress. So they were abandoned. When I was in the Federal Ministry of Education, principals were posted from the Federal Ministry of Education, appointed by the officials of the Federal Ministry of Education. But today, to be a principal of a federal government college, I'm not sure if all those posted come from the Ministry of Education. Some are posted from the Senate, some are posted from the House of Representatives, some are posted by influential members of the community. So the quality of teachers has also gone down. But of course, we still have the best of teachers in the federal university colleges. And that is why some of us think, so that we do not lose them, there is an urgent need to extend the service of teachers. So probably 65 years, so that we don't lose the quality of education that we have now. We should do that. And states are not taking education seriously. Unfortunately, a few of the federal government colleges have become glorified community secondary schools. There are states that nobody goes there. So you only get a few people and a lot, and we want to thank the Igbos for this one. Any federal government college you go, you will find one or two Igbo people there, the traders and all that. People don't go there. One, security has become a problem. Yes. Two, the recruitment of teachers. If Mr. Nwankwo is the principal of federal government colleges, Maiduguri, somebody in Enugu will be happy that, well, the principal is Mr. Nwankwo. When my son goes there, he will have somebody he can relate with. If for nothing else, he will see somebody who dresses like his father. And today, it's become, they have, by some arrangements, that people don't advance according to the quality and according to competence and according to character and according to capacity and according to capability, and people are appointed principals. People have lost confidence. These are things we must revisit. And in any case, like I said, we need to have educational planners. We must salvage the unity schools, because the hope of this country lies in the quality and the
I just want what Chief Onoja is saying. Isn't it the same story you find with federal universities? A vice chancellor will have to come from, if it doesn't come from the village where the university is sited, then it's a problem.
It's not just that. Even in the religious fairs, sometimes if a bishop does not come from a particular place, people say, no, we reject him. So it's been a Nigerian thing, if you ask me, and many others have argued in that direction. Let's come to Baraka.
Yes.
You wanted to add to what has said.
Yes,
I wanted to ask you another question, but go ahead.
Before you ask me the question, I want to build on what my principal said. And that's the basic, most important reason of us gathering after 40 years, products of that kind of unity schools, to brainstorm in 2 days' time, this Saturday, to sit down, 150 of us, from 58-year-olds to 60, 62, 40 years down the line, to sit down and say, what's happening? The kind of relationship he's saying that we enjoyed 40 years ago in the late 70s and early 80s are no longer there. Now we want to sit down and after retiring and say, look, let's have a flashback, let's reminisce and find out what is wrong, so that we can present a position paper, our thoughts to the government. And incidentally, the Secretary of the State Government, who is incidentally our colleague, but he went to Northeast College of Arts and Science instead of Federal School of Arts and Science, MUBI, is excited, and he will be a special guest of honor.
Who is this now?
Barrister Boss Mustafa.
Oh, well, no, you said Secretary of the State Government. That's
Federal Government. Sorry about it. Right, sorry, yeah, thanks for that correction. I apologize. And we invited the Federal Minister of Education, who will be the guest, the speaker. Now, the idea is to prompt and start a process based on our experiences, and then forward the position paper to the Ministry of Education to see how we can reenact and bring those things back in the context of the current population explosion, in the context of broken infrastructure, in the context of lack of training for teachers and lack of teaching aids. All these things will be brought to bear so that we can now sit back and say, look, government, we need to do something about this. And don't forget, insecurity is very, very prominent and dear to our heart too.
Yeah, I think well spoken. But still with you. Professor Naja raised a number of issues, very, very critical, and one of which is the security you just mentioned, and now the recruitment of teachers. What is the methodology for recruiting teachers? Are there qualified teachers? Are there just maybe people who are graduates or who are professors without passing through what it calls what normal training for teaching? Now, we also have a lack of qualified teachers, which we mentioned, then to poor quality of education, as well as a distortion of what the original design was, because unity schools were meant to be boarding schools, you know. But these days we have what we call day students, you know, people who come from the outside, which many have said, look, this is a kind of will bring bad influence. When after school, some people go to the town and some remain in the boarding. When they mix up, you know, there's a difference in ideologies and behavioral patterns, and those in the boarding. Those borders could as well be influenced by those coming from the outside. So what has that done, you know, in reducing the quality generally of what we have today in schools?
Two reasons, basically, amongst several others. One, they are, as she said, they are not motivated. They don't have they don't fit into the society, and they don't make their basic needs. You can't be hungry and not satisfied and not feed well and go and teach a kid or a school, or be a principal in a school, or a staff, or a teacher. You must make teachers comfortable, and you must insist that they must be trained so that they can impact. And whether we like it or not, there must be a policy now from the federal government to ensure there is a kind of we call it emergency thing, in such a way that we stop, look back, and absorb those students or those pupils, age-going pupils, on the streets into schools. Somehow, within the next 5 years, there must be a concerted effort to make sure all these students, including teachers, are given immediate and adequate education.
Okay, but Barker, thanks. I just would like to return to Chief Onoja. I wouldn't know whether Fadeke was in the country at the time. You haven't been in Moscow or elsewhere in Russia. During the Obasanjo administration, the then Minister of Education, Obiose Ekwesili, floated the idea of revamping the unity schools, you know, through some mechanism of privatization or otherwise. But they seem to have generated quite some uproar. And the idea was shut down. But some persons would argue that those problems were highlighted in terms of the effort to deal with the challenges of the unity schools, but having not addressed them, we are now seeing the problems compounded. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was in the ministry at that time, and all the agitation. And it is because of the neglect that some old boys wanted the schools so that it can be run. But you see, some of us who are professionals in the Ministry of Education saw it differently, and she meant well, because he wanted to solve a problem. But there are other ways of solving the problem. Like I said, if there was educational planning, and if educationists were in charge, were involved in planning, then we will make progress. But because of the heavy dose of politics that has come into education, this has really damaged education beyond. I'm not going to say beyond redemption, because we can still redeem education, even though it's because this. But the problem that we have with education is the inability of the local governments and the state governments, because education is on the concurrent list, to play their own role. And I must specifically say that in the northern part of the country, a lot of the leaders we have are only paying lip service to education. There are some states in the north where there are 3 federal unity schools: Federal Government Girls College, Federal Government Colleges, and Federal Science and Technical Colleges. And less than 100 people sit for the examination to enter into the schools. I'm not saying 100 passed, but less than 100 sat for the common entrance examination to go to the institutions.
Why?
They have been neglected. The governors are not paying attention to education. They are not playing their roles. The local governments are not doing anything to promote education. And they say there is no money for education. For God's sake, there's so much money in this country for education. That money that you use to send people to go to Hajj or go to Jerusalem, that is money for education. That money that is for to build airports in places where nobody goes to, that is money for education. That money for building new government houses, that is money for education. And there's so much money for education, and we're not using it. And it's the lack of it. We spend so much money now for insecurity, to kill terrorists. But we can still less money to kill terrorism. The only way you can kill terrorism is education. Education can kill terrorism. But bullets will kill terrorists. They will keep on coming. So let us invest money into education. Because that is the only thing. If this country has to have any priority, to use the words of Tony Blair, our number one priority should be education. Our number two priority should be education. And our number three priority should be education. Because only education can get us out of this insecurity. How do we fight insecurity? The Federal Unity Colleges will bring us together. We will not see our differences anymore. I have given the example of what King's College has been able to do.
Yeah, Kira, I know you have a question. I was just wondering, look, some persons would argue, several decades on, the dynamics of the country have been altered.
Yes.
Politics has come in, as Chief Onoja has indicated. But you also find new pressures, economic pressures, and then, of course, the security issues and ethnicity and tribalism. That in the past, why it was convenient for a father, to put his child on a vehicle and say, "Look, go to Sokoto, federal government college Sokoto, and come back." No parent is willing to risk that today. Are you with me? But the economics of it, who should continue to fund federal government colleges or the Unity schools? Virtually the students in the past, the pupils in the past were on scholarship, virtual scholarship. So who should fund it? Now the cost of education has gone up. So where should the funding come from? You also find that crisis in tertiary education. Are we also looking in this direction?
I think the federal government should.
Where would the money come from?
There's money. You see, when people say there's no money,
He answered the question.
There's
He
money.
said the money used
that is spent
to
on
fight terrorism, for instance, the money used to build airports, the money used to build government houses. There is money in Nigeria. It's just a matter of reorganizing our priorities. So that should be ABC, education, education, education. Now, I must quickly add, that the current federal government has started by stabilizing the polity and the economy and security. Corruption is on the downtrend. Insecurity. I'm from Adamawa State, and I worked in Maiduguri. It's virtually peaceful, except some few pockets of, and schools are a little bit safer now. We can build on that by ensuring the local government and the state government provide enough funds. Of course, the federal government will have to do that. Enough funds to meet these needs and cut down on frivolities in court, because a governor will say this is not, as far as he's concerned, he has a political mandate to execute what he promised the electorate.
There should be a will.
But there must be.
There should be a will.
As Chief Onoja rightly mentioned,
no will.
Education is on concurrent list, and it does appear that any sector that is on concurrent list, always suffers because of non-collaborative attitude of state and local government, in playing their own roles, right, as the tiers of government. Now that brings in the question of entry examination, specifically for Unity schools. Madam, should there be a special entry examination for those who wish to be in Unity schools? We normally take common entrance examination, which is general, and some have thought that well, after general examination, look at those that has a higher marks, you know, from different parts of the country, and perhaps post them to different unity schools. But now you set a special examination just for them, and as Chief Onoja pointed out, not many, you know, show up for such examination. So is it not part of the reason unity schools are going down? I want to hear from Faleke.
Yes, when you talk about unity schools, we are talking about secondary school. What about the primary school? That is the foundation. The focus should be on that primary school, first and foremost. Because if you have them, you won't be lagging there. You understand what I mean? That is the base. That is, if the foundation is not strong. That's why I feel teachers in primary schools should even be paid more than those in secondary school. And because if they don't produce, you can't have anything in secondary school. That's the foundation. If you have no foundation, you can't build a house.
So we should have unity primary schools? Is that what
Of course.
No, well,
Or I don't know where you are going to get them from. But if the foundation is not there, you
But-
are not going to have anything.
But generally speaking, really, since education is on concurrent list, should federal government be directly involved in the funding of unity schools? Can states also do that? Or should that be a kind of
You also
synergy?
have government secondary, government schools, but as usual, it's the same thing. You have 60 in a class, where you
80.
have them
80 now.
80 in a class. What do you expect?
Well, I don't know. I want to pursue this issue of the economics of running the schools. Chief Onoja, look, we have seen an explosion in our population.
Yes.
Are you with me? And the schools have grown in number. The federal government also has a lot on its plate. The number of universities that we had in 1973 isn't the same number that we have today. The number of colleges of education that are attached to the federal government is also not the same number we have today. And several other issues that the federal government itself is chasing. What therefore should be the role of parents or sponsors of students to federal unity schools as to their contribution to funding, so that once there is funding, then you can pay your teachers much better, you can provide better infrastructure, you can cater for the welfare of the students, you can then provide better hostel accommodation and so on and so forth, such as we are hearing in tertiary institutions like universities. Because if we keep waiting for the budget line, let government provide, might be a major issue.
education is social service. Education is our number one, if you like to use the Nigerian popular phrase, dividend of democracy. It should be education. I spoke about states not being able to have enough students even to fill federal government colleges in their states. The truth is that there are not enough viable primary schools that have the ability to read the questions and answer them.
Absolutely.
No. You even have teachers who cannot even read the question papers that it states. So that is the basic thing. Our leaders are not paying attention to education, and we should do so. Now, in this country, our unity, a lot of it will depend, like I talked about, the fourth tribe for this country. Now, I'll give you a few statistics, and I'm sorry I'll have to say it openly the way it is. There are 79 licensed private universities in Nigeria.
79.
There are 75 that are functional. Of the 75 that are functional, Northwest Zone has one private university. One, as of now. Northeast has two. One in Ukari and one is in Yola, the American University. The North Central has about 6 or 7 or 8. In the southern part of Nigeria, there are 65 functional private universities. So if ASU is on strike, there will be 65 universities working in the southern part of Nigeria. Ogun State has a minimum of 20.
That's my state.
Right? There are 50 polytechnics privately owned. 11 of them are in the northern Nigeria. Of the 11, 5 are in Benue State. And I can go on to colleges of education. Now we must do something and bridge that gap.
All right.
At the period of amalgamation, the southern part of Nigeria came with 14 post-primary institutions. Northern Nigeria came to amalgamation with a few primary schools.
3 or 4.
At independence, southern Nigeria had 842 secondary schools. Northern Nigeria had 41. Our leaders are not doing enough to bridge this gap. And the only way we can get out of insecurity is if we address education.
All right,
It's the only way that will move us forward.
All right, Chifanoja, that's well taken. I'm so excited about the statistics you are rolling out so easily and convincingly too. This is coming from someone who has a good background in education. We're also former principal of a King's College, and first worked in the ministry, and former education commissioner. So we're not surprised. What we're doing here is actually to bring certain things in the front burner, for the authorities concerned to take a deeper look or a closer look and make amends. Now, many Nigerians are beginning to respond to what we're saying here by way of sending their messages via tweets, and we have a number of them. Kingsley is a litany of quite big. So let's see how we can go through them. Now, Sani Michael Omakoji, it is not even the question to ask whether they are serving the purpose. Are the needed learning materials and structures in place? I was at Federal Government Unity School, Gwalawo in Kogi State, and I was bitterly shocked by the state of infrastructure decay. These schools need attention.
Mike Anyakwo. Now, the name Unity connotes that a pupil in elementary 6 taking the common entrance is not necessarily posted to a federal government college in his or her state, if successful. But how many Southerners are in Unity schools in the north and vice versa?
MD Ahmed, establishment of Unity schools is germane, although not serving its purpose. We can work on it.
Raji Abidemi, I think Unity schools are still maintaining standards, honestly, and I want to use this medium to appeal to the federal government to improve the education sector. Not every child will merit Unity schools. Okay,
Delejak Solomon, the high values in Unity colleges have dropped drastically. Values in terms of academics, pupils, welfare, feeding, and the environment are now ground zero. You can imagine that for months now, some Unity schools do not have light and water, especially girls' schools.
Mutana Farouk, it says that there are indications that the purpose of Unity schools has gone extinct due to the absence of love and the mutual distrust among the inhabitants of our nation. If urgent steps are not taken, the same scenario may play out in the NYSC scheme.
Omotolani says tertiary graduates are doing jobs of secondary school graduates because the standards of schools generally have dropped. Times have changed, but the Unity schools haven't. No more Frank Wood boots. Okay, just nothing. Pupils are smarter than the schools, with little or no ways of expressing themselves. The buildings are dilapidated.
Frank Wood, that was accounting, I believe.
Yes.
Titus Monday Knock. Generally, government schools have been so degraded and most of the schools are just in a state of educational disbelief. Because our educational technocrats who gained much from the same system have neglected and corrupted the system for their own ends.
All right, the Unity schools from Law Alpha C said the Unity schools are still living up to their billings, but government needs to up their game, mostly in the area of infrastructure, as privately owned schools are rebranding in many ways to whittle down their relevance.
Let's keep Mutana Farouk. We already took one from him, and Delejak Solomon. Utulo Sunday. Unity schools are in place and serving their purpose in my state. That's Benue. Now, what is needed is the enhancement of infrastructure so that the students can cope with modern-day realities.
Abbas Abubakar Saad, federal schools were established to promote, to promote unity and national integration, but sadly, the purpose was compromised. The standard is affected due to lack of funding, teacher quality, infrastructural and teaching facilities, emphasis on certificate rather than competence?
Mike Anyakwa, using my two girls that recently graduated from Unity Schools as an example, I will unequivocally vouch that the standards are still very high, as they are doing very well at their universities in the U.S. with a lot of scholarships. Standards should not be compromised. Which of the Unity Schools you didn't state?
Okay. Now, first, Dr. Kimber, Unity Schools were established to promote unity and integration in Nigeria. Sadly, the schools have lost their attractiveness due to unfair admission policy, poor funding, deplorable facility, and poor quality. Federal government should effectively fund the schools to bring them back to standard.
Badamasi Adamu says, with education failing frequently, the Unity Schools of today cannot be compared to those of yesteryears.
Mangai Amadu, politicizing admission process, poor feeding system, and regional insecurity are major obstacles to growth and development of the Unity Schools.
Alas, man, I'm a product of Unity College, and I know the fund teaching. Teaching and tuition was free. Everything good impacted us, but today nobody wants to go to Unity College.
Okay, that's Chris Simeon. If federal government continues showing neglect and like a discal attitude towards Unity schools, honestly, private schools will take the lead in due course.
All right, so on that note, we'd like to thank our guests who've been with us on the program this morning. Chief Sylvester Anoja, former principal, King's College, and former commissioner for education in Kogi State. Always very passionate about education. Thank you for being with us on the program. We also would like to appreciate Mrs. Fadeke Ayo Ojajune. Also, she's an alumna of a Unity School. Thank you very much for being with us on the program this morning.
Let me use this opportunity.
Sorry, we are pressed for time. All right. We also would like to appreciate another alumnus of a Unity School. That's Barka Madziga. Thank you very much for being with us on the program.
Kingsley, thank you so much.
All right. So it's Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break very quickly. When we return, we'll go ahead with our second topic for discussion.